Welcome everyone to the IGIS workshop on ArcGIS story maps. Hopefully by the end of today, you will know how to use this really powerful tool that hopefully you have available through your ArcGIS Online organization. So today what we're going to talk about is we're going to give introductions to who we are. We're going to go into an introduction to WebGIS, including web apps, web maps, story maps, and other core concepts and terminology when we're talking about story maps. And one of these key things that we're going to be talking about is the Esri ecosystem. This includes ArcGIS Online, including ArcGIS story maps, but it also includes ArcGIS Pro and other things like that. And then we're going to really delve into the workflow and the basic conceptual steps to building a story map. After we get done with the presentation, at least my part of the presentation, we are then going to shift gears into the exercise portion. And in the exercise portion, we're going to do an overview of ArcGIS Online, which is really your content hub for dealing with the data, the web maps, and the other pieces that go into a story map. We're going to talk about the different apps that you have available to you in your organization when you're in ArcGIS Online, which story maps is one of. We're going to talk about adding data and creating web maps. And then we're going to really get into the ArcGIS Story Map Builder. And this is really where you build, symbolize, stylize your story map, and you really publish that out and make it available to the general public or those within your organizations. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about how you can share your story maps and your web map applications to your organization on your website and on other websites by using an iframe or other content delivery mechanism. So that's kind of what we're going to cover today in this workshop. And I should note that as we go through this, if any of you have any questions or anything's come up, please put it in the chat window. There will be a team of people on the back end who I'll describe here in a second who will try to answer your questions. And if something comes up that we should let everyone know about that comes up as a question, it'll be someone will mention it to me and I'll try to address it, or Sean, who's going to be doing the exercises. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about who we are. We are the Informatics and GIS statewide program. We are part of UCANR. And the mission of UCANR is to serve California through the creation, development, and application of knowledge in agricultural and natural resources. I tend to think of ANR as where we take the information generated in the university and we extend it out to the general public and really talk about the value of it and how to use that information and research in day-to-day activities, whether it be in ag or natural resource related fields, and how the general community in California can benefit from this knowledge. As part of ANR, if you want to learn more, you can use this presentation I have here, and you can listen to the UCANR Roots video, which is included in this. But also, I want to point out that we have over 150 advisors around the state of California. We have over 260 community education specialists who are working with people in these individual communities and really trying to extend the research. We have 13 statewide programs, which IGIS is part of. We have 120 specialists on campuses and counties, and we have 9 research extension centers spread throughout the state. And we have almost 20,000 volunteers who do activities with us and with our partners throughout the state of California. To really get a feel for where we do work, you can see here, we have people in the blue dots in almost every county except for Alpine County. We have those 9 research extension centers that you see here in the green triangles, and then you can see the university campuses that we are affiliated with and have researchers at. One thing that a lot of people don't realize when they hear about UCANR, they may not know who we are, but they know the programs that we develop. They know of 4-H. You've probably heard of IPM. You've most likely worked with California naturalists or master gardeners. So really, we have these groups that are part of ANR that the average person in California is familiar with. They just may not know UCANR as an overarching brand. So who's IGIS, which is our group? It's the Informatics and GIS statewide program. Our primary resource, we are the primary resource for geospatial knowledge and innovation. We serve as a bridge between innovation leaders and the local and statewide ANR programs, providing support for spatial data tools and analysis, and we actually help build out research projects and extend that research out to the general public. Who we are specifically, we are, IGIS is made up of, right now, there are 7 individuals located in 4 locations around the state of California. We have people at the University of California, Berkeley. They are Ben Satzman, Genoa Stars, Andy Lyons, and Dr. Maggie Kelly. And I want to point out that including Maggie Kelly, the 4 people at Berkeley are on the call today to help behind the scenes answer questions and to really help you if you guys get stuck on anything. So then we have people at Berkeley. We have 1 person at UC Davis, that is Dr. Sean Hogan. And Sean is going to be the presenter when it comes to the exercises and really getting into what story maps are. We have Robert Johnson, who's at the Kearney Ag Research Extension Center in the Central Valley. And then we have myself, who is over in Mendocino County at the Hopland Research and Extension Center in, like I said, in Mendocino County. Like I said, we are in 4 different locations around the state. Who are you is one of the questions that you may be wondering. We have, I can't remember exactly the exact number of participants. I know Sean has that for sure. We have people as far away as Washington, D.C., as far north as Seattle, and the majority of the people are in California. And you can see that here as we zoom further into California, we can see where people reside. There's a large contingent down in Berkeley, in that area, as well as other places such as Davis and then in the surrounding areas. What I would like to have you do at this moment is bring up the chat window if you can and put in there your name, what you hope to learn from this workshop, and then give us your experience with ArcGIS story maps. 1 if you're new to it, and 5 if you're an expert. If you don't mind, please do that now. And we'll just take a few minutes. Thank you, Maggie. Nick, thanks. I would agree with Maggie. I'm probably some days a 3, sometimes I feel like a 4, but then some days I feel like a total novice. So thank you, everyone. Please keep them coming. Jan, I feel like that some days. Thank you. Thank you. I'll continue. So why might you want to make a story map? First off, story maps are really interactive. It's a content-rich website that displays both mapping and contextual information with pictures about places. They are journalistic in style. There are many different multiple templates we can choose from, and they're highly customizable. You can call on multiple existing sources of data. This could be data you have on your computer that you could upload into the system. It's data that's already exists from authoritative sources, such as your organization or even federal, state, or local data sets, whether they be from local governments or other NGOs or other resources. And the nice thing about story maps is they're web-based, but you don't have to do coding to make them work. Everything, as you'll find when you get into the exercises, is really based on a point-and-click interface where you can then type information, choose different content, and really develop out your site. Technically, a story map may be easy to build, but it's challenging to design, and you have to work within the limitations that Esri has put in place when it comes to a story map. But due to the endless artistic and written directions, I'm sorry, hold on. It's challenging to design, and due to that, though, it can be challenging because you have so many options and you can do so much with it. And you'll see that as you really get into the system. Things that story maps do not do well. Story maps are generally not suitable for data collection efforts. You can, however, embed something for data collection as an app inside of a story map, but I don't necessarily recommend that. They don't always look good on mobile devices. In fact, at the end of this presentation, you'll have a link to what I'm showing here right now. And if you were to open that in a mobile device or a tablet, you'll see how the content changes and it doesn't always look the best. And you're very limited on styling options for what we refer to as look and feel. Basically, there's a handful of pre-built-in styles. I want to say 6 to 8 that you can choose. You can also build out your own styles in ArcGIS Online using the graphical user interface they give you. But even then, you're limited in how you can style it. But with that said, it is powerful. You can make it look nice. You can make it actually follow your company's brand or your organization's brands. You're just limited sometimes on the different fonts you can use and things like that. So one thing that's really powerful about story maps is that they incorporate multiple content types. What I mean by that is you can have a story map and you can, as you saw above, you can have web maps integrated into it. You can have other web applications brought into it as embedded content. You can have your photos, you can have your videos, and your videos and photos, I will say, can come from your desktop or they can come from other links online. You can embed video from Vimeo, you can YouTube, different video sources directly into your story map. You can add your text and you can text style things in the graphical user interface, and you can use headings, subheadings, paragraph breaks, etc. You can highlight quotes, you can do all these different things. You can embed hyperlinks, or you can embed external websites or videos. And as I go through my talk today, you've already seen some of these things. But you'll also see embedded external websites, and you'll see how those can work. Really, though, as you get into this, what you're going to notice is in these story maps, you have data, you apply symbology and styling, and it really turns out really nice. And we'll go through that in a little bit. One of the main building blocks of a story map is a web map themselves. I like to think of web maps as almost like a Word document. It's where you can go in, you craft your document, you make it look nice, you change the fonts, you add your data, you stylize your data, and you save it. And for example, we have three different web applications here. Here's one you can look at. You can see here that all your data is here. You can click on different things and you get pop-ups about your data. You can go in and you can turn different layers on and off, and you can really do different things with it. This is all within a graphical user interface that allows you to stylize and work with your data. One caveat to this, and is that you probably wouldn't want to add a web map, to a story map as an embedded object, like in an iframe, because what that would do is it gives your user all this functionality, and in reality, you may not want that. You may want to guide or control what they can do with the data. So you may not want to actually have this much flexibility built into the story map. One caveat I'll make is right now I could go into this and I could actually make modifications, make changes to the symbology of the story map. And if I went to save it, it wouldn't save it to the original one. So we don't have to worry about things getting overwritten, but you would have to save it to your own account to make it hold and still make it so you can get back to it. And if you notice here, there are 3 different versions or 3 different web maps that I have linked into this story map when you get it, if you want to look at it. And you can just interact, you can turn things on and off, and really just play with the data and see what's in here. Feel free to do that and look and play with these. And there's another website here just for your own use, so you can get in and see what type of flexibility you have with web maps. And these are really the basic building blocks of story maps. You have your text content, but then you also have your mapping content, and that's going to come from the ArcGIS Online platform. So like I was saying, this is almost like a document where you're composing it and it has full functionality like a Word document, if you think of it that way, as opposed to the web application. And the web applications are really a graphical wrapper that goes around a web map. And in here, you can actually specify what users can do. You can make it so they can't turn layers on and off. You can turn off different widgets. You can make it so they can search for different things. You can style it, make it look really nice, and just really give it different features. One thing I want to point out is that a story map is not just, but it is a web application. So part of the Esri ecosystem, and I'll show this in a second, is the data platform with web maps, but then there's all these applications that are built on top of it. So the web apps, they're graphically appealing. They include a variety of layout options, labels, infographics, and other widgets, and they often resemble a standalone web application. One thing to note is that Esri comes with a number of pre-built web apps that you can just load your web maps into, and you don't have to do customization if you don't want to. There's a basic web view web app. There's all these different things you can use. Here are three different web apps that we are highlighting. The first one is for a program called the UC California Naturalist. Now I believe it's called and Andy and Sean, Maggie, correct me. I think it's the UC Climate Stewards, or at least that's one of their names right now. If you click on it, you can see where they have different individuals around the state, different partner organizations. And this web map is really easy for people to navigate and really work with. And this is, you can't do a search, but you can zoom in and out and you can highlight different things. Here's a web app that many of you have probably seen. This was put together by Johns Hopkins University at the beginning of the COVID epidemic or pandemic. And it is still functioning. They're still keeping it up to date. And this is built on top of the ArcGIS Story Map platform, or actually the dashboard platform. And this is available in the ArcGIS Online ecosystem that you all hopefully have access to. And then the last one is just a UCANR annual report from a couple of years ago that just highlights different activities that ANR has done. And it just helps tell the story of who we are as a group and what we've done over time. So, and this is a really nice, easy way for us to get our information out to our partners and to our county people, our county representatives and the general citizens of California. And you could do the same in your own organization. And many of our county offices, cooperative extension offices are starting to use story maps for their annual reports. So here are different ways and different applications that you can use within the Esri ecosystem. So let's get into a little bit more about ArcGIS story maps. Like I mentioned, story maps are another type of web application. They really are a purpose-driven look and feel. They're journalistic in style and they're content-rich. So here are two examples of some story maps that we helped put together in the last couple of years. The first one is a story map we put together back when the new university president came in. This is back at the height of COVID. And normally we would take a new president of the university around different parts of the state and explain what UCANR is, where we are, what programs we have, and what impact we have on the state of California. But because of the pandemic, we were not able to do that. So we worked with people within ANR, and we developed the UCANR virtual tool using the Esri Story Map platform. So what you can see here, just as we're doing in this presentation today, you can scroll through, you can go to different sections within the application, and you can get at videos and you can hear what people have to say. You can really get the story of what ANR is and what we do. And this has really become a tool that we've been able to use and use beyond this use case for the UC president, but use it in a lot of our collaboration and communication that we do with people around the state. The other example of a story map is one we put together with the University of California Cooperative Extension Office in Sonoma, as well as a private nonprofit in Sonoma called the Pepperwood Preserve, as well as Tuckman Geospatial, a GIS group down in Sonoma. And we were trying to build a web application that really talked about wildfire fuel management around the state, around Sonoma, what you can do to protect your land, protect your house, and what type of activities you can do to make your property fire resilient. And we just have a lot of different resources in this one story map, and it really tells the story of how to work with fire in the landscape. And this is publicly accessible, and you can get in and look at this and really see what could be done in your area. There's embedded videos and so forth. So here are just two really good examples of how we've used story maps just within the last 2-3 years to really get information out to the general public. One thing I want to note is everything I just showed above, up to this point, including this presentation, uses Esri software. So we are using ArcGIS Online, we are using story maps, and in here we have content, video, audio, photos, and other websites. But one thing that's really important to note is this very first statement on the left-hand side is that you can put any secure content in a story map. The important thing is it has to be HTTPS, so a secure HTTP server. Otherwise, the content will not show up in story maps. So as you're building your story map, if you pull in a website or you pull in a photo or a video and it doesn't show up, the issue probably has to do that it's not being hosted on a secure HTTP site. So just keep that in mind if you have any issues. But as we're pointing out here, all this is based on ArcGIS Online. So when you're building a story map, an ArcGIS story map, once again, keep in mind HTTP content. But it's all about the data. It's all about the design, and it's all about the development of it and what it really looks like, how it's symbolized, and all those type of things. So as you move through the process, keep those things in mind. It's about data, it's about the design and symbology, and it's about developing it to make it look the way you want to look and feel and really get your message out to the public. So why use ArcGIS Online and the integration it provides? Well, the main reason is that ArcGIS Online is a great hub for your data. You can have your data on there. You can have data from this repository called the Living Atlas, which is part of ArcGIS Online. You can have data collection apps where you're pulling data in from your constituents, whether it be the scientific community, whether it be from the general public through data collection apps. You can gather all this information and bring it directly into your story map. And you can bring in external content, whether it be photos, videos, audio, all these different things. You can all bring it into ArcGIS Online. You can design your underlying web maps and really get into symbology and changing backgrounds and colors and just making it really tell the story you want. And then you can really develop it into web applications, story maps, which is just another type of web application, as well as native apps. We don't delve much into native apps. When we say native apps, we mean programs that work specific to mobile devices like iOS and Android. But at the Esri ecosystem, you can develop native applications as well. So ArcGIS Online provides all these tools, data, and resources that you can then use for your story map. So it's a really powerful system, and that's what we're going to be dealing with today. So we're going to talk briefly about the Esri software. And what Esri is the Earth Science Resource Institute, which has been around since the 70s. They are the owners and who control ArcGIS and who developed ArcGIS, the ArcGIS platform. And right now, at this point, there are two main things. There's ArcGIS Pro and there's ArcGIS Online. Most of what we're going to talk about today is ArcGIS Online, which is the cloud-based GIS system. But we do want to point out the local non-cloud-based, desktop-based GIS system also. That's called ArcGIS Pro. They work hand in hand with each other. They have tight integration between ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Online. But there are strengths between both of them. The strengths of ArcGIS Online is you can create web maps and web apps directly in a browser. You don't need the desktop software. You can use those web apps and those web maps directly in other apps like story maps. There's simple analysis that you can do, a lot of vector analysis, and most recently they've been building in more raster analysis that you can perform. And it's relatively easy to use and it's intuitive. But the thing about, and then if you think though, and you compare that to ArcGIS Pro's strengths, there are many. It is a powerhouse when it comes to cartography and really symbolizing your data, making paper maps, and making really beautiful designs. You can control your projections, and projections are really important in that you can have projections very specific to the environment where you are. Projections, you can think about whether it's representing area, distance, and all these things properly. In the web map environment, it's only one projection that's used, and it's called Web Mercator. We won't get into changing that. It's a little more complicated in the web, but when you're dealing with ArcGIS Pro, it's really straightforward and easy. One nice thing about ArcGIS Pro is There's a lot of advanced analysis. There's deep learning, there's image processing, there's a lot of spatial modeling. You can work with UAV and LiDAR data, and you can do a lot of coding, whether it be Python, VB.NET. There's a lot of different coding you can do, as well as R coding, to really model and work with your data. You can't do that as easily in the cloud environment, although they are making it easier to do some coding in the cloud. One thing that's really important to note is that both of these systems, whether it be ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Pro, need licenses. You have to purchase a license in most situations. If you're with a university or an organization, you may benefit from a master site license that's already in place. You may not have to directly purchase licenses, but there are license requirements. A really important requirement about ArcGIS Pro is it has to be on a Windows-based PC. It has to be a 64-bit PC, which most are these days, but it will not run on tablets, it will not run on phones, and it will not run on Macs, and it will not run on Linux or Unix. It only runs on Windows. So that is one shortcoming of ArcGIS Pro, whereas ArcGIS Online, it's all browser-based. So if you have a browser, you can open it up and you can work with ArcGIS Online, and you can work with story maps. So I just wanted to point those differences and different strengths between the two programs. As I mentioned earlier, there are many apps associated with ArcGIS Online, and there are more being rolled out all the time. So here is just a small list of about 23 to 24 apps that you have available if you have ArcGIS Online. And you'll notice the one that's highlighted in the upper left corner, that's Story Maps. So Story Maps is just one web app that you have available to you. I have already shown you several of these above, such as dashboards, web maps, web map viewer, all sorts of different things. So please note that there are many applications you can tap into. And I should point out that IGIS does trainings in some of these other applications, and we provide those trainings throughout the year. So what is GIS in the cloud? Let's get into that a little bit, because you're really going to need to know that for what we're going to talk about. In using ArcGIS Online and the Story Map app, we have a ton of options, and we have some constraints. One thing you may have noticed up above is some of my images may have been a little blurry. Some of the overhanging indents may have been slightly off. Those are type of constraints you deal with when you're dealing with these story maps. Esri has built the system so it's pretty bulletproof, but because they did that, they had to build in constraints to try to handle some of these issues. So they did certain things when it comes to especially photos that's problems, I shouldn't say problems, but hard to work with. And you'll get into that as you work more and more with it. So some of the constraints and things to think about. Data. What are your spatial data formats in the cloud? So what type of data are you going to be dealing with? You might be dealing with a hosted comma separated value file that you've moved from your computer. You could be dealing with hosted spatial data that's coming off of your servers. It could be data that's coming off ArcGIS Online, your own organization, or it could be coming off other servers elsewhere. So your data is going to come from varying areas. You need to think about who you're sharing these apps with, and whether all your data is shared in the same way. For instance, I could have brought apps in or data into this story map that I'm presenting today, and it could have been shared with me or a certain group within my organization or the organization, but not everybody. And one of the limitations of that is that if I share this story map with you, you wouldn't be able to see those apps or those data because it would have been behind security. So when you're building out story maps or working in ArcGIS, you always want to think about permissions, whether you want everyone to have access to the data, if they need access to the data, but you also need to think about some of your data may be sensitive and you don't want everyone to have it. So you really need to think about what you're making available to the public. One nice thing about ArcGIS Online and story maps in the cloud in general is think about everything as being building blocks. Web maps are a building block that leads to web apps. Web apps are a building block that you can then use in your website, you can use in story maps, you can use elsewhere. Everything is a block that you can use elsewhere. It's a really powerful system, and hopefully by the end of today, you'll see that, and you'll get used to working with it. The last thing about GIS in the cloud that really has that really is a strong thing, and it's really helpful, is the visualization aspects of what you can do with GIS in the cloud. You can bring data in and you can visualize it and style it in a way that really makes it accessible to everyone. You can tell your story and really make it feel like really tell your story, really make it jump out and tell the story you want to tell. So let's look a little bit at spatial data in the cloud. When we interact with the web and ArcGIS Online, we talk about data as layers and services. If you've been doing GIS for a while, you might think of shapefiles, file geodatabases, Excel spreadsheets, comma-separated values, geotiffs, and all those things. Those are really terms that we think about when we're talking about desktop GIS. When we're talking about spatial data in the cloud, we shift from those old or different ways of thinking about spatial data to new ones. So instead of shapefiles and comma-separated value files and Excel spreadsheets and file geodatabases, we think about feature layers, hosted feature layers. So it's data that's saved up in the cloud as points, lines, and polygons. And there are services that we can use in our cloud-based tools such as web maps and web apps. Then you have map image layers and map elevation layers. These are actual raster data that's often tiled that you can then use in your web maps and your web apps, similar to feature layers, but this is for rasters. We also have something called scene layers, which I have not used much, but I have used a little. And think about these as three-dimensional data sets, elevation data sets that you can use in 3D scene viewers where you can actually see the elevation and drape your data on it. These are available in ArcGIS Online, and you can play with that and really get a feel for what they can do. One nice thing about scene layers is you can develop digital elevation models or digital surface models using such things as drone imagery and LiDAR, and upload those into ArcGIS Online and actually work with the 3D features inside of a scene layer. And another thing that's fairly new within the last several years is vector tile layers within ArcGIS Online. And these are base maps that you can use in your apps, in your maps, that you can style using the vector tile base map styler and editor in ArcGIS Online. And you can go in and you can modify that layer, and you get to benefit from the layer caching and everything else that Esri's doing on the back end. So you get really fast, responsive base maps that are customized for your needs. We won't get into that today, but it's very strong and powerful tools that you can use for symbolizing and visualizing your data. So here are different data that you can use inside the Esri ArcGIS interface. So data in the cloud, I've already mentioned this a little bit. And when you get into ArcGIS Online, you're dealing with data. You always have to think about, is your data sensitive? Who should have access to it? Is it the public? Is it your organization? Is there a group in your organization or just yourself? So be really careful of that and really think about your data and how you're sharing it. And keep in mind in ArcGIS Online, when you go to share something, there are 4 different levels: yourself, groups, your organization, and everyone. I believe Sean will cover that briefly in the exercise. So just keep that in mind. 2 more things I want to mention. There are 2 different ways to build ArcGIS story maps. One version is a new tool that came out last year. It's called storymaps.com. This is a standalone story map building system that Esri has put out. It does not depend on ArcGIS Online. And basically all the same functionalities there. It's just not part of an organization, so you don't have quite the same data availability and the same functionality, but it's mostly the same. Then there's the other version, and this is the one we're going to go over today, which is Story Maps, the Story Maps app, which is part of ArcGIS Online. This includes templates plus a start from scratch option, and this is what Sean's going to talk about in a few minutes. So once again, there are 2 overarching approaches to building story maps. There's the storymap.com option, which is the standalone web map building platform. Once again, you do not need ArcGIS Online organization accounts, and it's not tied to ArcGIS Online. The second option is using ArcGIS Online, where your base is the ArcGIS platform. You create, manage your web apps, your features, all the data you have access to. You create non-story maps as well as other applications. And then you can go in and fold those into the story maps that are available. And there are 3 different templates inside the story map app. There are 3 templates, and then there's also the build from scratch option, which really allows you to go in and start building your application, adding your content, your stories, your photos, your text, and really develop your system. And this is what Sean is going to talk about in just a few minutes. So here again, the workflow is you start up a new story map you have in ArcGIS Online. You tell your story, you script it out, you build it into the app, you bring in your spatial data, and then you publish the data and you make it accessible. I tend to think of a story map as an interactive presentation, and often I start my story maps by building a presentation, making it have what I want, and then I build the story map from there. With that, I just want to point out that you can get to the standalone version if you want and check it out on storymaps.com. Here's what the basic website looks like. You can click on this, it'll take you there. With that, I just want to point out that we're going to take a quick break here in a few minutes. If you want to during the break, you can go to either one of these links and see if I can do it without breaking anything. I'll drop these into the chat window. You can go to those links. You can check out the story map that Sean has put together. And you can also check out this presentation and the different links and stuff there and different parts of the story map that I presented here. So with that, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if anyone has questions during the break, please ask.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. As always, excellent intro to what I'm going to be covering. And I particularly appreciate that Shane did his whole entire presentation in a story map, which is that's the first time for this workshop. It takes a little bit of work to set it up, but as he noted before, that one of the ways he likes to put together story maps is have a presentation and then move the content over to the story map. Before we continue, just a little something that I put together. He mentioned one of the things that I do before a ArcGIS story map workshop is kick the tires again, just to make sure that I'm not a 1 on the day that I show up instead of a 4 or 5. And that's because one time I came to a story map workshop back when I taught a workshop with CartoDB, and they entirely jettisoned the interface for a new interface. And so all the directions were wrong. So usually the day before a workshop, I put together something like this story map of where all of you have come from. So we have people from all over the state and even a couple other places in the country. And one of the reasons I put this together is just to give you just a slightly different example of what in this case would be a story map tour would look like using the story map builder, where you can see where we have people that have come from the Bay Area, 26 people, the Greater Central Valley, Northern California, Greater Southern California, even Seattle and Washington, D.C. And so that I bring up because that was in the email that I sent out earlier today around 11:30 something. And I want to refer to this right now before I shut down my email, because I don't want to have pop-ups of my email showing up on the video feed as we go on. But just to refer to this, make sure that you've downloaded the exercise material that's listed in the directions here. You should, if you have the Zoom link to this session, I'm sure you received this email. Download this and make sure that you unzip it in a folder, say an ArcGIS Story Maps Workshop folder, as I've done here. I'll go up 1 level. So it comes in, you copy it and paste it, or cut it and paste it into an ArcGIS Story Map Workshop folder, unzip it, and then delete it. Because if you try to use the content from within the zipped folder, it won't work, and it won't work at all. And so I've seen that in previous workshops. So I'm going to delete that myself right now as an example. When I say unzip that might mean right click and decompress or unzip, depending on what kind of application you have on your computer. If you have problems with that, just let us know. So then you should have this content here. So every time we give this workshop, I always go back and I watch the video of the previous workshop. And by the way, I mentioned earlier, this workshop's being recorded, and it usually takes me a couple of days to edit it and get it up onto our YouTube channel, which I believe I have up here somewhere. You might want to refer to that sometime. We have a ton of content playlist of story maps, ArcGIS Pro, field maps. A lot of the content kind of slightly overlaps, but not too much. But when I look back at those videos from the time before, I look for kind of sharp edges or sticking points that people have. And one of those is understanding unzipping your content and then understanding what we're working with there. I threw in that folder a PDF of the presentation that Shane just gave from last year. It was different, of course, than the story map. This is what his story map was built off of. We have the exercise directions that we'll be working on today. An important note on this, if you're using an Adobe product, sometimes when you open this up, so I don't know what it'll open up in if I double click on it, it appears to be opening up in Microsoft Edge. That's fine. I can copy and paste from Microsoft Edge, but in your cases, if it happens to default to an Adobe product, sometimes you can't copy and paste. And this workshop's going to be all about copying and pasting. So that's been a sticking point for a couple people in the past. It'll save you a ton of time when it comes to copying and pasting. And an example of that is the workshop visualization and organization Word document that we have, and I'll bring this up. One of the biggest time sinks for creating a story map is curating all of the content that you need. And so we've done that for you for this workshop. So instead of this being a 3-hour workshop, instead of it being like a 3-day workshop, it can be a 3-hour workshop. If you already have all the media and all of the text, and you already have kind of the structure organized in this case in a document, it'll make your life much easier. That is the time-consuming part of it. The great thing about you having this is that if you want to replicate this kind of design, you could change out the text and the media and just plug your own content into all these slots or rearrange the order. But most of the important mapping elements, be it like titles or headers or maps or different kind, you'll see as we go along, you can rearrange that and change that around to your heart's delight, depending on what your intention is with your story map. Inside of this as well, we have a link to a completed version of what you'll be working on today. One thing before I continue, when I was saying when it comes to copy and pasting, Control-C is going to be your friend, and we'll find out as we go on. I'll repeat this. You can't always use Control-V. You have to either use Control-Shift-V because you need to paste this plain text. I want to mention that before I continue and move off of this screen, which is here. Let's see. I think I already brought it up. Oh, no, that was my practice session from earlier. There we go. So this is what the final product will look like that we'll be working towards. So we're going to have an ANR Research and Extension Center centric theme for this particular workshop. I mean, for lack of a better idea, thought it'd be a good way to just talk about something that is close to us. Again, this could be any kind of theme that you decide on when you design your own maps. But for today, this is what we'll be working towards. And when we start off the workshop, we'll begin with setting up a style design. So you set up a template for fonts and for color and different separator styles, quotes, as well as having different types of map slides that roll along the side of your screen. I'll show you how to embed web or interactive type frames like we have here. Andy Lyon set this up for us. And rolling text along the side. And so this will be what you'll be working towards. One of the reasons I put it in there is because if you're working through this exercise on your own and you're not sure what this should look like, you can always refer to that for kind of guidance. Besides that, one of the things that you'll have received is an ANR Rec Center CSV file, and I'll open that now just so you can see what it looks like. So the thing about a story map is that it is a spatially referenced story, essentially. And so we need to have something to reference to. And in this case, we're going to be talking about our research and extension centers. And fortunately, in ArcGIS Online, if you have the name of a center and the address of the said center, you can plug this right into ArcGIS Online and it'll find those locations for you, just like you might see in something like Google Maps. So it'll geo-reference addresses. So we'll be putting in this list of centers and addresses for to be sort of the background of our story map. Finally, the last thing that you should have received is this folder of media. And inside of this, most of this is all pictures except for one video. But these pictures are they're pretty easy and intuitive to recognize if you are in the picture view. So what I recommend, if you're not in default, and this is something that makes it a little bit easier for folks, including myself, is to set the view as large icons. That way, when we say, okay, get this picture and drag it in here, it'll be much easier to just kind of identify what images we're talking about. And then your screen will match my screen. Good. And I'll just reduce that down for now. Good. So that is the content. That's what you received in your download from earlier once it's unzipped. And I'm going to shut out my email now, or close it out, because again, I don't want to have that popping up with emails the whole time. Another thing that I want to mention, and this is the other biggest sticking point that most people have, is trying to maximize to best lay out your screen so you can see everything. I know that many of us have got to be experts at handling our screens with online learning and meetings over the course of COVID. But even still, this workshop is particularly challenging because I'm going to have 3 screens up and you may have 4. Everybody has a different strategy of how they like to go through, both lay out the images on the screen or their windows, and how they like to follow along with the workshop. It seems that the most common way that folks go about this is that they'll set up my Zoom in one side of the screen or one corner of the screen, listen to what I'm saying, watch what I'm doing, and then follow along. I'll do pretty much the whole workshop from memory to both expedite the workshop so we get it done in time, but also just because it alleviates toggling between so many screens. I'll start off by using the exercise, which I still have up in Google Docs here, as opposed to the PDF that you'll be working from. Oh, and I usually set that up over on the left side of my window. And I put it down a little bit so I can leaf up between one screen to the next. So I'll have this in the far left. I'll have my working session in the middle. So say if I have another window that'll be open in the middle, I'll squeeze it over just a little bit and lift it up. If I can get that. By the way, just something else that's important, make sure that If you don't have one handy, try to get one right now. If you're working on a laptop, for most GIS applications, you need to have a mouse or a trackball. And so, yeah, being able to keep up, it'll be really hard if you don't have something like that and you're trying to use your touchpad or your the button on your computer. Good. So then after I have the exercise directions on the left side, I'll usually put my working session in the middle. And then finally, I will put that Word document, the UCANR story map visualization and organization document, all the way to the right. That can be sometimes leafed underneath the Zoom session so you can see me and that. You might have to rearrange that a little bit. So see how I've done that? It's just kind of leafing it one up because we're going to be toggling between one and the other in this workshop a ton. And again, there's going to be tons of copying and pasting. And so again, this isn't a 3-day workshop, it's a two-day workshop, and it's not an exercise in speed typing. So we can just get all the content over. Good. If you have any questions about that, then just let us know. And in just a sec, and right now, I want to do one other thing to alleviate the last sticking point that I've seen people have. And if none of the things I've talked about, like hang you up, then pretty much everybody's good to go through this workshop from what I've seen in past workshops. And the last thing is to make sure that your ArcGIS Online is working. So I am going to, my ArcGIS Online is already up. But I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to leave that up, close out of Shane's presentation. And this is where I'm going to jump from saying, okay, that was all info only. More or less, you could have been following along. But the next thing I need you to do is to click on a new tab or create a new tab in the center of your screen and go to ArcGIS Online, login, and then search for that. And then it might look a little different depending on your browser, but we want to go to sign in to ArcGIS Online. Hopefully the directions were sent out a couple times earlier this week. If you don't already have a UCANR ArcGIS Online account, then you received one earlier this week, and that's what this is a test of. You'll have to go through logging in with your credentials. Again, this is one of the last big sticking points that we have, because some organizational accounts don't have all of the extensions that you need to complete the workshop. And so this is the test of it. Once you get into your ArcGIS Online, you need to go up. There's a little cluster of 9 dots at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Click on that and look through and make sure that you have story maps as an option. If you have story maps, you have enough, then you're good to go. You shouldn't have any issues. In fact, once you find that, click on it, make sure it comes up. And if it comes up, then you're set for the workshop. Good. If anybody here had any problems with that, we'll do a 10-minute break right now, and we'll come back at 2:10 to make sure that and in that period, make sure that you have all your screens up, make sure you're logged on to ArcGIS Online. You have your files are all unzipped. So you have that little period. And if you've already done that, then you got a little bit of time to just relax the brain. I know that doing this for 3 hours straight is a little like driving in the fog. So we want to make sure that this is not just a good learning experience, but fun, and you get what you need out of it. Good. So let me check the chat. Oh, one last thing. Because there's so many screens open for me, I can't have the chat open at the same time and pay attention to the 3/4 screens that I have open a lot of the time. So if you do have a question, throw it in the chat. We have our awesome team here. They can either answer it in the chat or they can relay it to me as I'm talking, or catch me at a good break. And then when we come to breaks intermittently, then we don't have too many people today, so we can unmute and chat then. Sound good? All right. Good. All right, let's take a break until 2:10. We'll be back at 2:10 and we'll get on with another slightly soft start before we really dive into the stuff deeply. All right, everyone. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask in the chat. Oh, someone asked if you have Adobe and you can't copy and paste, right click on your file. So I'll go to the file, go to something like this, the PDF, right click and open with a browser, Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. Good. Glad. All right. I skimmed over that a little bit too quickly. Excellent. Okay. Having trouble how to log in. So hopefully so let me bring up my email again. It's not giving you the option to log in. Oh, it's not giving you the option to open the with anything other than double check to see if you can copy and paste from your Adobe product. See if that's possible. And I'm not sure that I've never had that come up for me before. To check to see if you can copy and paste out of Adobe before we worry, though. And then referring back to someone's question about how to log in. So I'm going to go to my sent stuff. And earlier, it's one of the last things that I sent. This section of the directions were sent the last part. Let's see. ArcGIS Online licenses. This was sent out twice earlier this week. So you should have signed up for a ArcGIS on license through IGIS. So you'll need that for the workshop. You should have received information after you applied there. And then you can set up your account. And then all you do is go to ArcGIS Online login, and then it should bring up a prompt when it says sign in. If you have trouble with that, let us know. Shane Fire or Robert Johnson can get you set up super fast. All right. I think we'll get going again. Like I said, we'll get back with a little bit of not a really fast start on this. It's going to be some info only to start with, because I know that some people are just still coming off their break, or they're just still trying to make sure that their licenses and all their contents all prepped and ready. But for that kind of soft start, we talk about a little bit about ArcGIS Online, because that's sort of the hub of this whole constellation of 20 something apps that are there. And I see a new one is now added to that list just recently. So there's always some kind of peripheral app, but ArcGIS Online is now become the hub of a lot of these, again, constellation of applications, including ArcGIS Pro, which we have our own workshop on. And in the past, I've had a couple times where people have asked, how do we sync our ArcGIS Pro our sessions with our story maps? And that is one of those kinds of questions that you can come to our office hours on Mondays or Tuesday afternoons. You can find the sign up for those office hours on our IGIS website. So just look up, you see in our IGIS, and look in the resources, and I think you'll find the sign up for the office hours pretty easily. So any kind of questions that are sort of tangential to what we're covering today, that's where you can go to find that out. But because ArcGIS Online is kind of the hub for our data repository and content management. I want to go over that just a little bit really quick. Hopefully everybody has been able to log in here, and if so, then usually you'll come up originally, it'll either be in your organization tab or your home tab. I'm just going to go over a couple little things. Shane alluded to a couple of those earlier, and then I'll just use this as a segue into the actual story map building, because it is a quote unquote story map. I mean, the map being the key thing. That's where that content comes from here. He mentioned that there's a free online story map application that Esri also offers at I think it was free, but price. But if you don't have the ArcGIS Online access, it's kind of very shallow. It's just a kind of a journalistic type interface, and without the mapping background. That'll make a little bit more sense as we go on. So just really quick, and I'm going to skim over this because we have a workshop all on ArcGIS Online. There, I'm going to go across the tabs across the top really quick. There's the gallery. This is all kinds of content that our organization has collected that's available to us. It's, I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of layers, including information about the research and extension centers and our facilities, cooperative extension offices, you name it, as well as just tons of other stuff. That's just data that's available to our organization. There's also tons of other data available too. We'll see. The next tab is your map tab, which I actually should have skipped come back to, because that's going to be where we're going to actually start getting our hands dirty with this workshop here in a few minutes. But you'll notice when I clicked on that tab, it went from having a banner of options across the top of tabs to now having a drop down. We'll come back to the map here very soon, because that's the this is where we'll start off our actual hands-on stuff. Again, this is info only right now. If you want to follow along, you can, but if not, it's okay. Scene, I'm going to skip that. Well, no, I'll go to that because it actually can be an element within story maps, which is pretty dang neat and kind of analogous to the interactive scene of the Hopland wreck, or of Kearney wreck, that it was in the example story map. On here, we have a variety of different maps. I'll just use the HREC one for now. And what this is just a 3D or 2.5D representation of an area where you can scroll around and see it at different angles. And so you can have something interactive like this within your within your story map, which is pretty neat. This, by the way, opened up another tab, so I can just go back, and I'm back into the story, into the ArcGIS Online. Next, we already went to map, scene, notebook. We'll skip groups. This is actually important, groups, because this is how you can set some of your sharing parameters by creating groups. In my case, I have all kinds of various groups that we've created over the years. The environmental stewards group, feral pig damage group, you name it, field map store, exercise groups. So create these groups. The value of that is if you want to share your story map with just a select group of people, and this is particularly important when you're working with field data collection, where you might have a group of people that are trained to know what kind of trees that you're trying to record data on, or whatever the case may be, then you might want to only share your content with that given group. We'll see that in the sharing settings later, but this is where you set the groups up. The content. This is where we have all of these different web maps, feature layers, CSV files, like the location one that will be loading up there here very soon. There's web mapping applications, story maps will appear in here. I can just go on and on and on. There's tons of different elements to maps that you could have in here, or map related content, probably more accurate way to put that. And all this content is, in this case, is being shown for, this is in my training folder, because that's the last thing I was looking at earlier, but I could look at all of my content. I can set up these new folders by adding folders where I have broadband, Costa Rica project, field map training, my ranch, you name it. You can set up all these folders to be able to find your data more easily. And another way you can set it up to find your data more easily is to star these, and then it becomes a favorite. And then you could go to your favorite content and find it more easily. And so that includes the story map that I refer to fairly often. So that's, again, this is just a super glossed overview of what we have here. And the last thing is the cluster that we'll go back to here shortly. Oh, one other thing, this is something important sometimes in your content. You can create new items. And this includes feature layers, imagery layers. Now in our organizational account, we have this as an option, which you didn't used to have. You can add all these types of content to your collection. Previously, they got rid of it. Okay, good. They used to have the story map builder in there, and I wanted to highlight it that one of Esri's kind of infamous tendencies is to have multiple names for different things, and their story map builder there was called something else. You'll see sometimes that it'll be story map is 2 words, sometimes it'll be 1 word, you name it. There's like a little bit lacking and lack of consistency, but they got rid of a variation that used to be under there. Maybe it's under create app. There it is. Just called ArcGIS story maps. There we go. So we have that. One note is that there are all kinds of different web mapping applications, not to be confused with web maps. And the difference being is a web map is just the basic map, and a web mapping application is something that's more like website-esque, where you can have infographics, legends, just call outs, all kinds of different things. They can be very similar to a story map. And another thing about those types of apps is that they can be embedded within the story maps to just kind of get a more dimensions of more dimensions of your content. And that takes a little bit of creativity and knowledge of how you build those other things. And again, that's where some of our other workshops come together with this. Good. So what I want you to do now, that's where the info only part kind of ends. So hopefully everybody's right here and handy. I'm going to double check the chat, make sure that I'm not missing anything. Okay, cool. Maggie's got the office hours in there. Good. So, and then, yeah, so that was just info only. So anybody that's just kind of getting back to it now, you haven't missed anything that's going to hold you up. That does remind me, most of the stuff throughout this workshop is nicely organized. So if you miss any one thing, you can go to the next and it doesn't matter. It doesn't really build on the last thing. I mean, maybe your results will be like a little bit more limited in the end, but still, if you miss anything, nothing's going to break in the next step. So next we're going to go to map. So for all of you in your ArcGIS Online, go to map. And there's, I got to do a new map because it remembers where I was at earlier. Good. All right. So this is what it should look like when it first comes up. By the way, if I've kind of got my screen scrunched, if I move it over, then you'll see the tabs across the left side of your screen in this pane over to the left. You'll see about, content, and legend. If it's scrunched too much, you just get it like little icons. The second one over though is your content. And this is where we're going to just create a very rudimentary web map again, it's going to be the backbone of our story map. And the way we do that, by clicking on content, now we're going to go down to the folder that hopefully you have in your C drive. It says ArcGIS Story Map Workshop, and I added December 2023 because we do this once or twice a year. In here, we're going to go to that ANR Rec Center CSV file. The easiest way is just to click and drag that into your content pane. And then it'll give you a prompt that should already automatically match everything up the way it should. ArcGIS is pretty good about that. So it'll recognize the address is the address, the city is the city, the state is the state zip, and so forth. And then all you have to do is click add layer, and voila, it comes in. But the symbology of it, the style of it it's a little bit, I don't know, it's not very clear because the dots are so small. And so we're going to adjust that a little bit, just for just a little teeny bit of style effect. And we don't need the colors, the different colors are fine, but what we do want to do is change the size. And so we have the first option is types, unique symbols. So hopefully everybody, they were able to drag this CSV file into content. And then once it comes in, we'll click on options. And what it's going to do is give us the list of essentially the legend of what each of these are and what dot they're referring to. But what we want to do is click on the little 3-color mini rainbow at the top right-hand corner. Click on that, and we'll have the option of changing the symbol size. So let's go with something like, like 20. Should be okay. Click OK, and there you go. Now we have some dots that stand out. And so we know, and one of the kind of this, I don't want to call it a trade secret, pro tip for when it comes to cartography or computer cartography is making the things that are important pop out. So we want, this is kind of, again, the backbone. We want to have these things pop out and be the important part on the map. So there we go. We have a basic map here. We don't need to get into a whole bunch of different styles. Like we can change the base map, which we won't do today, but you can add all these different, one of the other base map options, but we won't. We'll just leave it as it is for right now. It's fine. And we'll click OK and click done. The next thing that we need to do is save it. So we got to go up to the little, the save button, and when it comes to ArcGIS Online, saving often, saving frequently is a great saying, because if you move out of a session, you open up a different web map, but you are working on the changes won't be saved. So we'll click Save Map. The first time you do it, it is a new map, so it doesn't have a name. So it doesn't matter if you pick Save or Save As. I'll just click Save As. And since we want to give it something intuitive. I don't remember what the directions say. They say like it'll be down here. It's probably I tend to highlight things in red that are important. It's for copying and pasting. Here we go. Title your map, UCANR Story Map Workshop. Control C, that's page 9, halfway down. You can copy and paste it or just type it in, or something intuitive is fine as well. It's going to be pretty apparent. And because I've done this, I know 9 times before, I just saw that earlier. This is going to be my V10. But you can type in UCANR Story Maps Workshop. It doesn't matter if you have these underscores in there, by the way, for this part. This is something that kind of GIS people do. We've got used to it over years because some things need you to have underscores, but right now we can just put in just as that is. And then for tags, this is something that's required. The reason is, well, there's a couple of reasons. It's for reference for your own benefit as well as others. So if you want it to be discoverable by both yourself or others, you need to have this option to search for key terms. In this case, I'll do something like training, and I have trash too as another one, or junk, because I like to be able to clean out my junk every so often, because if I have V1 through 9, 10 is not really necessary. It's getting redundant. But I want to, and put in some tags. And then finally, if you want to save it in a particular folder, that's fine. You don't need to change this, but in my case, I'll put it in the ArcGIS training folder, just kind of so it consolidates stuff. And then finally, I'll go to Save Map. And there we go. We just got done with a kind of one of the major steps, checking the okay, yeah. So a lot of people have a hard time jumping back between screens. Totally understandable. That's the biggest challenge that we run into. Good. So that's and again, that's why I mentioned earlier, yeah, having it leafed over so we have our exercise directions on the far left, having your working session in the middle or to your right is good, and then having my zoom over to the far right might be your best course of action for right now. Good. So if you made it that far, hopefully we're good. And we have the I think it's good time for a 5-minute break. So if you had a little bit of trouble with that, then you can, this is a good time to just kind of catch up a little bit. The key thing, I can repeat just super fast, drag and drop your UCNR recs into your contents or your map. You don't have to change the style if you don't want, but you can change the style and then save it and give it an appropriate tags, and then we'll be right where we're at. And so let's take a 5-minute break to let everybody kind of breathe for a second, and we'll come back at 2:34. Give us 6 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. 2:34. We'll be back. All right, we'll get going again. I'm glad to see Andy answered Alex's question about CSV files. I mentioned earlier my favorite way right now for time sake is just drag and drop a CSV file in here to create a hosted feature layer. There's other ways to do that in our content. That's just the quickest way for this workshop. So moving on, now it's time to start our story map journey. And how we need to do that, or the easiest way, is under the drop down up here. After we've saved our map, make sure that's happened, we'll do the drop down and click on content. Could really be almost any of those, but content's good. And once we're here, we'll go up to the cluster of 9 dots at the top right-hand corner of the screen. Click that. And story maps might not be at the top of your list. It could be anywhere because you can rearrange these. It just happens to be up there because that's what I use, well, fairly often. So I'm going to click on that. You might have to search for it a little bit, and we will get to the story map collection. Yours is going to look a little bit different than mine is looking right now because I have a whole bunch of story maps that I worked on the last couple of years or so. And so there's the one that I showed you earlier for your locations. There's a couple that I always run through it super fast to make sure that everything is still working in the application and trying to see what new glitches might occur. And by the way, there will be glitches. There's little kind of funny things that change, and sometimes they get better, sometimes they don't. And so then I figure out ways to navigate around those so we can get done in a timely enough manner. But what we're going to do is once we get in here, I want to start off with just setting up a theme. Okay, I'm going to deviate slightly from the written directions, and I'm just a little bit, but because it just takes a minute or few minutes off of the time of this workshop exercise, and that is to jump straight to the themes and create our themes straight away instead of doing it after we started our story map. We can have all kinds of different themes, and this is nice. This is a great feature because you can save these themes and then use them all the time. If you have a nice kind of template of different colors and fonts and you name it, that a way of styling your story maps, say your organization, as ours has, is kind of settled on our UCANR communications theme of color palettes and fonts and so forth. And so then you can reuse that all the time, and you don't have to use a ton of time trying to reinvent wheels if you don't need to, figuratively speaking. So we're going to create our own theme today. And the way you do that, go into themes in the story map builder. So just the fourth tab down, if you're just coming back in, we're going to go up, click on the create new theme on the top right-hand corner, and it'll launch the theme builder. As we change the options, then they're going to be reflected on the side over here. By the way, in the directions, we are going to be working off of just the very bottom of page 13, moving into page 14. And that includes this, which I should probably have in red, but 5.4 on the top of page 14, it will be the name of the theme that we're going to be creating. So I'm going to control C that. So, or you can type it in UCANR communications or whatever. I mean, you can, it doesn't have to just be that. Oops. So that's our current theme, but I am going to give it another version of whatever the map is, because I've done this theme a bunch of times as well. This is where the copying and pasting is going to really start kicking in. And how it is, I'm going to set up the exercise directions on the far left, because we're going to be copying and pasting hex codes back and forth across to the theme. And so as we scroll down, we're going to see the colors that are going to pop up in these little, I made them red so they're easy to catch your eye, hopefully. And we'll go over the top of that, including the hashtag mark, Control C. So that's on 5.7. And that what we're doing is we're going to be using this hex code, which is a code that's specifically for a certain color. I'll go back to this, drop down with the colors, and I mentioned that's the accent color. We can leave the background color, the secondary background color, that kind of thing, all fine. The header color, that's okay as a default. But the accent color, we will use the drop down. So if you follow me, we're in the themes drop down, scroll down about the third option, accent color, use the drop down, and then paste that hex code in, Control V, and it'll give a nice darkish blue color. And then we just have to click out of it, and it'll set. And you can see it reflected over on the right side. There'll be some like things that'll change. Moving on. So that's the accent color. Then we'll have optional accent colors, color 1 and color 2, the very bottom of page 14. So you by the way, I have a hunch you'll get the hang of this copying and pasting thing before too long. So we'll just go Control C or right click and copy. Control C will save you a bunch of time. And then optional colors, the first drop down will be that color 1. And we'll just Control V and paste that in to give it a kind of a yellowish orange. Then click outside of it. Next, we'll Control C, the next color 2, including the hashtag, Control C. The number 2 optional accent color, and Control V, the lighter blue. This will all make a lot more sense as we get into the story map. It'll make it, we'll have this nice templated colors that will be reflected in the style of the map. Good, we're gonna move down, typography. So we're gonna leave the default as Avenir Next World, but we need to change the title color to this hex code 005 FAE. Control C. Under 5.8 on the top of page 15. Go back over here, scroll down, expand the typography. So the title and heading, we'll use the drop down arrow for that. So you can see where I'm at, title and headings, drop down arrow. And that's where we paste in that hex code. Good. It's going to be the same dark blue as that we had up above. Then we can just click off of it. We'll scroll down a little bit further. Oh, one thing to note here, and this is in the directions and it's worth bringing up. There's this great website called Color Brewer too that has a whole bunch of options for these hex codes and suggested color palettes that have like ideal contrast, but also ideal contrast for people with color blindness. So that's something to refer to if you're kind of working through this on your own and you want a particular color palette that's going to work for everybody. But I just want to mention that before we continue on. So with the back to this, we're going to leave non-serif. That's fine. That we don't have to change the color. We can. Let's change the paragraph color to black. It's kind of a grayish now. Let's go all the way black. Like it to really pop out. So paragraph in black. Good. Now we're going to continue down. Buttons, options. I kind of like the second option over. If you look over on the right hand side, you'll see this little blue square, and it'll reflect which option you pick. And I think the middle one with the slightly rounded edges is the most professional looking. And so we'll go with buttons, the center option. And we don't have to change the color. For quotes, though, we will change the color. So we have this hex code here. We'll copy and paste that, Control C. So bottom of page 15, Control C on the red FDB D10. That's for quotes. So we'll go down. We'll leave the default is the first option. The first option looks quite nice, but we want to use a custom color. So we'll click on that. And then we'll put in the hex code there, Control V, to give us that orangish yellow we had earlier. Good, and then we click off. So then quotes will have that, will be the first option here, and then you click this custom color and that hex code gets pasted in there. Good. Leaving it default to the left. We're going to scroll down. We're going to skip past links and go to separators. And under separators, let's go with the third option over, the 3 dots. It's subtle and nice, but we want to set it with our own preference of a color. So we'll go with the under 511. See how this is a lot of toggling back and forth. Hopefully everybody's, I'm not going too quick. Control C. Go back to the map. And under separators, use custom colors. And Control V. Good. And we have a yellow for that as well. Good. Good. Now we have created a theme. Now let me take a pause and let me look at the chat. Make sure everybody is anybody having trouble with that speed?
Hey, Sean, I think a couple people might have stepped away and gotten behind, but I'm trying to let everybody know that all that you're doing is sort of minor tweaks here. It doesn't really matter, right? They can kind of plow ahead.
That is absolutely correct. We very intentionally made this exercise so it wouldn't, nothing left out will hurt you later on.
Yeah. So if you're like, what the heck is going on? You can start with any template. All Sean's doing is kind of refining little bits, but you can just start with your own template. Is that correct?
That is correct. The only purpose of doing all this theme is to let you know how to do it, and then you can have your final product look like the example we used earlier. But if it doesn't look like it, that's fine. I mean, at least you have the information right here handy. so someone asked about like creating the story from scratch. We haven't created a story yet. We've only used a theme that we've created so far. So we haven't done any story map creation yet. That's the next step. And so just so, and I'll just I'm not going to go all the way through it, but I'll just kind of repeat that process. If you want to do this on your own a little bit later, if you go up to the top of top of page, or the bottom of page 13, and we go to create theme with theme options, the third or fourth one down on when you first open up your story maps builder, you'll just go through this and read through the directions, find where it says like accent color, and copy and paste that in under your accent color. And then you copy and paste these under your color 1 and 2 and your optional accents. And then that's pretty much what we do, is we just get back and forth and back and forth and copy and paste these themes across. So it's it goes in there. And so we're actually on really good time, because I took like I said, I saved a few minutes by not starting the story map to begin with. So we have plenty of time if anybody wants to catch up on that right now. All right, let's hit publish now. So once you have your theme all built, this is very important. It's automatically saved, but it won't be usable until you hit publish at the top. You hit up at the top right-hand corner, click the publish button. Now I got to get rid of some Zoom stuff in the way, figure out where the publish, oh, there it is. And then there's a secondary publish button that was hidden underneath my Zoom. Click on that, and then it'll publish that particular theme. Good. Now we can use the back button at the top where it says go to themes. So the top left-hand corner, click on that back button, not the back button for your browser, just the back button that was in like a step down below. And then we'll go to stories. I have to move my Zoom bar. Good. Now we're going to start our story. So we'll click on new story and start from scratch. We'll take a pause there, make sure everybody was able to do that. No problem. You were able to get back to the story. If not, you can always go back to your content session and then click the cluster again and get back to your story maps. And then new story from scratch. Good. So this is where I found a way to make this smoother for you. And because there's a little bit of this section where you go back and forth between the organizational document, the Word document, and the exercise directions, I'll cover the exercise directions for you. So you don't have to refer to that so much anymore, but rather the workshop document is what you're going to be using now. So what you might want to do is take your working session, move it over so you can see, so you can now toggle between that and your Word document titled the UCANR Story Map Visualization and Organization Document. Good. Because one of the first things we'll do is up at the top is we want to give our story map a title. And that title is listed at the top of this table under title. So we'll go click on that. So let everybody kind of get that organized, those panes or the windows moved around. So you have your story map that you're going to be building on your window here, and then our Word document. And the second box down, we're going to copy and paste the title, UCANR's Kearney Agriculture Research and Extension Center. Control C, go over to the title. this is where Control V is not your friend. You need to right click and paste as plain text, because sometimes Control V will break it for you. And I need to do another version. V10. You don't have to add this. Okay, or oh wait, why don't it won't let me have any more spaces. I've already used up too many spaces. So I'll just put 10 at the end. Or just actually, you know what? I got another idea. I'll just put a dash, just something a little different, because it'll save that way in mind. You don't need to do that. All right. The next thing we'll do is we're going to skip. I'm going to do something that's in the directions that we don't need to, you don't have to refer back to your directions. I can just explain it. We'll go to design. And under design, we're going to click on navigation. So you see at the top, almost center, design option. When the pop-up window gets there, you're going to select the right one, which is your full screen. So the cover is going to be full. Your optional story sections is going to be, click on your navigation. We're going to go down and select a couple things before we pick our theme for now. One of those is going to be upload a logo. And on this, we're going to select the UCANR logo. Just click on this. So by the way, it went to the last place I was searching for it because I did this exercise earlier. You're going to probably have to navigate to your C drive, to your ArcGIS story map workshop folder, to your media and your workshop media. And then once you're in there, then you go to the UCANR logo and then click on open on that. So, because I know that's going to take you more time, I'll just give that a second. So you upload logo, navigate to your workshop media folder in your C drive, click UCANR logo, and click open. Good. So something that's optional, you can have this be a hot link. And by the way, you don't have to do this right now. This is kind of just extra. So I'm not going to, this is going to be info only. I just happen to know that link is on page 9, the bottom of page 9, if I remember right. Let's see, maybe not. Maybe page, shoot, I don't remember what the URL was for it. Gosh dang it, I thought I had it right earlier. Story map, design. Let's see here. Oh, here it is. On whatever, page 12.
Yeah, someone says, okay.
I can
Page 11
copy
or
and
page
paste.
12.
Yeah, Control C. I can paste that in there. You don't have to do that, but it's just so you know that that can be done to create a hot link for that particular for that link at the top of the screen. Now that will automatically save is once you get that in its place. There's no necessity to save. I want to make sure. Good. And then we're going to go up and browse my themes. So click on browse my themes, and the last one that you just created should be your first option. So just click on that and you'll see it show up as your options. And you are all set on your themes. Now all you need to do is just click off of it and it'll disappear. So now you're set up with your logo, your theme, everything is pretty much in there the way that you want it. You have your title across the top. And then this is a good spot for us to take another, let's make it a 7-minute break, because we'll give everybody a little bit of time to decompress. We're right on track. So yeah, let's take a 7-minute break until 3:05. All right, we'll return at 3:05. I'll check the chat right now to see if there's anything that we need. Oops. Is how to reset title page. I'm not sure which one that's referring to. So
maybe Sean underneath, maybe they mean under design.
oh
Have
yeah,
you gone there?
yeah. So there's yeah, so we just come in here, we browse the themes, we selected the one that we had, that the cover, we just clicked on the full.
Oh, he says the map title.
Oh, the map title. Okay, we'll repeat that when we get.
Sorry, Jan says the map title, not he.
Okay,
sorry,
the
Jan.
map title. Yeah, that's just a matter of going to the Word document where it says title, copy, and then just paste it right in here. And that'll create the title there. You don't have to have that little dash. I just add that in there to make it a little different from the last bunches of these I've done that I need to delete. If you made it this far, yeah, good on you, because we've made it through, I think, what is all of the most challenging stuff there. And now you will see possible little glitches, but nothing that ever seems to hold anybody up too bad. So but you can see that I have shifted things just a little bit, where I have my working story map on the left side of my screen now and moved it over, shifted a little bit further over to the left. And I have the UCANR story map visualization and organization Word document on the right-hand side, leafed up a little bit, because we're going to be toggling back and forth between these two. So I'll just might refer to this as just the organization document or something to that effect. So the way this works, again, this is for expediency, getting all of the curation of this material together is the most time consuming part of this, of building a story map. We've done that for you, and you'll see what I mean here now. We're just going to go back and forth, and this is going to be, I wouldn't call it tedious, but there's going to be a lot of redundancy, and you will see that depending on what kind of elements you're adding to your story map, whether it's a title or a map or a sidecar, or you'll see what these things are as we go. In those, just having them already sorted out and figured out ahead of time and what kind of media goes with them is huge. So without further ado, let's move on. So we already put the title in. So on this document over here, we copied and pasted the title text. You see in our Kearney Research and Extension Center. If you haven't done that, you can just paste it in here at the very top using right click and paste as plain text. I emphasize that because if you just do Control V, not always, but in a lot of cases, it will mess it up and it'll make it, and you'll have to back it up. Fortunately, they have created a undo button now. It's still considered beta, but it works so far. It's one of the things that does seem to work pretty well. You'll see, in just to understand it a little bit, here is the story map element that I'm referring to, and then the media or text that goes with that. And I will save you from having to look at the directions because I've tucked them over there by just telling you what are in the directions to refer to. So you don't have to toggle between 3 things, just 2. So we put in the title. Now let's put in the title image. And the way we do that is we go down on our story map and add cover image or video. Click on this and then go down to the bottom of your browser and bring up your folder that's in your C drive where your content's at and go into your workshop media folder. Might have to navigate a little bit there. And it's appropriately labeled title image. And all we need to do is click that and drag it and drop it in. So click and drag the tractor image up. So again, that's straight from your media folder. You might have to navigate to it. Title image, drag and drop. We'll get used to this going back and forth. And then I'll click on back to just hide it behind, and then just click add. And you'll see it will fill in the backspace. Back to the Word document, the organization document. Now let's put in a subtitle that's right below that. So we'll copy and paste exploring UCANR-REC resources, Control C. And then right under the title, as you might guess, right click and do paste as plain text. And it'll come in as a plain text. Don't just Control V because it will, sometimes the text size and font and things like that will get janky. Next, we're going to move down. We're going to start adding new elements now as we go. We don't have to put any create. Oh, wait. Oh, it'll automatically create our navigation because we checked the navigation box earlier. So we'll go to heading, Control C on the Word document. So we're on after title, after subtitle, heading is the 3rd option down, Control C. And then we'll go down to this little plus sign on the story map and click on that plus sign. Go up to the top and click text. So you plus sign and click text. What we need to do here, right click, paste as plain text. And then we are going to drag over the top of it. And from the drop down arrow, select heading 1. And that's where our theme style starts to kick in that we built earlier. I mean, it already started, but now it's really becomes more apparent. We have the color and the font and you name it, that we designated when we designed our theme. Good. Back to the Word document. Now we're going to go to the next thing, heading 2. So we're going to drag over that. So we're just going to go in order on each one of these. Some of you might want to work ahead. And if you run into something you're not sure about, then you can just wait until I catch up. I don't want to just fly through this because, again, I know some of you jumping between one and the other is tricky. And so it'll just, you'll get the hang of it pretty quick, though, because whatever element you're putting in, there's a lot of similarities. I'll Control C on who we are. Go down below this, click on here, and click on the plus sign. Text. Right click and paste as plain text, who we are. But it's just in this plain black And so remember, this is a heading 2. So what we'll do is we'll go drag over the top of it, select the drop down for heading 2, and then it'll get a little bit more bold and large. Back to the Word document, and we'll see this over and over again. The next one is going to be just standard paragraph text. So I'll drag over the top of all of this text, not counting the very last little bit, the add hyperlink for research center, research and extension centers. We're going to not copy and paste that. We're just going to copy and paste the top part of the text, and with the research and extension centers included, Control C. Go back over to our story map and click plus and text. So we're still just doing text so far. Right click and paste as plain text. So you'll see that because we did plain text, it doesn't include the returns, which is fine. So we'll just go over to the research and extension centers and click enter after that. So it's separated out a little bit. So now it looks a lot like what it looks like in here. And we're going to add a hyperlink. And I have to move my zoom so I can see how to do that. Good. And then that hyperlinked URL is right here in your document. Control C. And how we do this is we go over the top, we drag over the top of the text that we want to hyperlink, and then go down to the little chain, click, select web page, and we can just Control V this time's fine, and apply. So we can add in that URL to as a hyperlink with little chain link. If you miss that, it doesn't matter at all. But just so you know that that's how it can be done. Good. Now we'll move on to quotes. Is anybody, I haven't looked at the chat because my Zoom, too many things are up. Make sure that I'm not getting too quick. Okay. Oh, okay. Someone's working on a MacBook Pro, so maybe your shortcuts might not be the same. Oh man, copy and paste plain text. Well, if you just, yeah, I mean, if you're a quick typer, you can add in some of this stuff, or you can just abbreviate and just put in whatever you want. It doesn't have to be. The idea of the techniques are what are important right here. Good. Doesn't have to be exactly what we're doing here. Quote though, let's do this now for everybody that can copy and paste. Over the top of quote, we'll Control C or copy, right click, copy. And then we'll go down below here, do the little plus sign again. Quote is also text, so we'll go up and select text. Right click, paste as plain text. And then we highlight it. Oops. Make sure I don't drag it somewhere. Highlight it. And then select the options. And quote is one of the ones down at the bottom. Good. We can skip the source information there. Add quote source, which is an option. We don't need to do that. Good. So you can see this is, it's kind of a straightforward process, and we'll get used to copying and pasting text, and we'll see now that it gets slightly more, I don't know, I wouldn't say painstaking, but not ideal copying and pasting text. One of the reasons why we do like to paste text, though, just as a kind of a side note, is that it would the story map builder doesn't have spell check or grammar check, and so yeah, I don't know if any of you are like me, typo master, that yeah, having it catch that stuff over here in the document and then copying and pasting is a good thing instead of it's building from scratch. But story map builder is kind of designed for people to build it within Story Map Builder. But still, the way we're doing it here is kind of what I would still recommend to do. So now we're continuing on. We're going to add more text following the quote. So this is something to note, and I noted this in the document. Bullet points need to be copied and pasted separately, with even an extra caveat on the top of that. So we won't copy the bullet points yet. We'll just do the text at the top of this. So we're on the top of page 2. Control C or copy. Go over, add text. It's going to be just regular paragraph text. By the way, just also as a side note, if you try to select one of the other ones first, it doesn't help you. So you might as well just control or the paste as plain text. You're still going to have to do this afterwards anyways. If you select the type of text it should be beforehand. You used to be able to change it like as a year and a half ago, and somewhere along the line they changed it so it didn't recognize the formatting from Word or something, and so it stopped working. So, and if that doesn't make any sense, don't worry about it. The key thing though is that we need to paste it in as plain text and then highlight and then change it afterwards. In this case, we don't need to change it because it's already in paragraph format. But now when it comes to the bullet points, that's a little different story. If we copy and paste this, it's going to recognize the bullet points. And so it's going to have bullet points and then more bullet points. So what you'll need to do is go on your document and then just delete each of the bullet points to start with. So we'll just delete each one of these. We leave the bullet points in the document just so you know what it should look like at the end. But then when we Control C or copy and we add that text in below as text, we right click, paste as plain text. Then we can refer back to this, and I'm going to undo those so my document looks the way I want it to. I know that, so first is county-based cooperative extension academics. So what we'll do is we'll highlight over the top of this. Under the drop down, we'll click bullet list. And then I know that the first part is county-based cooperative extension academics. We click once and then click enter. Refer to this again. Then campus-based academics. Click enter after that. Then researchers from land-grant institutions in other states. So after states, we click enter. And then finally, researchers from the USDA is the last section. We click enter. So there we have a bullet point list. One of the things that I do wish that ArcGIS or the Story Map Builder did allow us to do is add indentation. It would make, like as Shane said, his preference is taking a presentation he's already built and then converting it over to a story map. Well, a lot of the time you have indentations in those presentations, and there's not a really easy way to do that here. It's unfortunately, I mean, you can kind of do it a little bit with some of these with different types of text formats, but it's not easy. Good. Cruising along well. Let me check the chat really quick, make sure that I'm not, oh, hold on a second. Too many things open. Where's the chat? Oh, no new questions. All right, cool. So hopefully this pace is good. I try to leave like a whole hour almost for this whole section, even though it really doesn't take that long. Once you get the hang of it, you can do it in 20 minutes, but when you're learning it, it's not like you're born with this knowledge. It just takes a while. So photos. Next, we're going to do kind of a separator with a photo that will give it a nice effect. And the way we do that, you click the plus sign, And then we're going to add an image. Click on image, just like we did before. Oh, I got something in my way. I need to click. Dang it. What's on that? Oh, this is what I wanted, was already open underneath. All right, so now I need the image of the, let's see, which one was it? The vegetables. Click on vegetables and drag it up. Good. So then once that's in, click add. So now I just know that the vegetable one is the one that's hidden underneath there, or the media folder. Good. The thing though is this is not like ideal at this size. So we might want to enlarge it a little bit. We have different options. We can do float left, float right. Those make them really teeny. We have the small and then medium, and medium's really pretty big, and it spans the whole entire thing. So that's nice. Something you can do, and we won't because I don't need to look back to the directions to figure out what it says. But what you can do is go to options and add in either an image link or properties that you can do. And that includes under properties an alternative text. And the reason for this is entering in an alternative text is we can say fruit at research center or something like that. And that way, whether if it shows up on a screen like maybe a smartphone that you can't really, it doesn't have enough width to be able to see the fruit, or maybe it's a text reader to meet like ADA compliance, whatever the case is, having that alternative text in there is something that's sometimes desirable. So that can be done. You don't have to worry about that, but it's just so you know that's something that can be done. Good. Back to the document. We're now past the photo. It talked about like the alternative text. We don't have to have a caption, but let's move on to about Kearney. So we'll create a new header. So noting too, whenever we put in a header, it adds it to the navigation tab. That's kind of like a freeze pane at the top of the screen. And this header is going to be the about Kearney reg. So on the document, page 2, center-ish, heading about Kearney reg, Control C. We'll go down to the plus sign and add in text. Right click, plain text, and then go over the top of it and select heading 1. And look, it just appeared at the top because those headings are, the quick links for the navigation. Good. We're going to do a heading number 2 is location. So back to the document, right under the heading, we have location, Control C, plus text again, right click, paste as plain text. We highlight over the top of it. Oop, it glitched a little on me. And click heading number 2. Good. So we can see that we're building up to something here. And then a text paragraph. This is just going to be plain paragraph text. Just going to highlight all of that, Control C. And under location, we'll do another plus and add that text in there. Right click, plain text. This time it by default, it comes in as paragraph, so we don't have to worry about it after that. Let me check the chat, make sure everybody's kind of cruising along. All right, good. And if anybody's taken off, if someone does have to leave early, I understand it is a Friday afternoon, but this will be available on the YouTube channel next week. Good. So moving back to the document, the organization document. Now it's time to put in our web map. So yeah, we didn't build that for nothing, right? So let's do the web map. How we do that is we're going to click plus and map. Fortunate thing is the last thing that we created is the UCANR story map workshop. And so it should be the first thing that pops up. So we can just click on that. It will come up. I know something that you don't know, which means that I know that we're going to zoom in a minute, but for right now, we're not going to worry about it. So I want to show you how to come back and edit this in a minute. So we're just going to place map the way it is automatically. And it's going to fill up this space here. But we're specifically talking about Kearney Rec right now in the location. So what we're going to do is going to, on the float, across the top of this, we're going to select float left. So it creates just a little map. But that little map is not really appropriate for those big dots across the state. It's just the scale and spacing. None of that's right. So we're going to want to isolate this just to the Kearney Rec. So it's a little reference map. And how we do that is we click on the edit option, and it'll bring us back to where we were at before. And I just happen to know that Kearney Rec is the top one in this little triangle in the center by Fresno. So let's zoom in on that. And because Fresno is kind of a landmark, let's give it so we can see Fresno within the map and the point. So we can either do that scale or this scale, whichever of the two. And then we can click place map. So now you have a reference map that actually is a little bit more intuitive. Good. And then for the caption below that, so we go back to the document, we can put alternative text. I'll show you how to do that in a second. But first we'll do the caption. CARE location. CARE is the abbreviation for the Kearney Agricultural Research and Extension Center. Control C. And in this case, we can just do Control V because there's only one text option that's available for that, for a caption. So then it's at the bottom. So by the way, if you wanted to create an alternative text, it's the same thing as we did up above. Under options, you can click alternative text. We don't need to worry about that. I just want you to know that it's something that can be done. Good. But now it's not good. We have the map here. That's great. Let's get something to go with it to kind of give it balance. Whenever you're creating it's sort of an unspoken rule that you want to have balance in your in the design of your maps. The same thing applies to this like kind of journalistically rich, spatially referenced map story. Or story map, this case is called. So we want to put some balance over to the right, and that includes putting in a heading. So we'll go to the heading underneath map where it says research at Kearney or research at CARE, Control C, and then we'll click the plus sign right next to it and add text. This text is going to show up to the right side of it. Right click, paste as plain text. And if I remember right, that is header 2. Yep, heading 2. So we'll go over the top of it. Select heading 2. Good. This is just a little side note. For some reason, it's a little weird glitch. Sometimes you have to click next to it and click a backspace. Yep, sure did. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. It spaces it down there. Noticed that before. So now it's back at the top where it should be right next to it. Good. And then we can put a little bit more text about it. So underneath that, Control C. From the text about research at Kearney, press the plus sign again, text, right click, paste as plain text, and then we have that little blurb that's available. Good. I think we're going well. I don't want to take a break because we're going to have about maybe 20 more minutes to go. So instead, I think it'd be better just to plug along since we had a good 7-minute break last one. Sometimes I take a 5-minute break right now, but I think it'd be best just to cruise through, get everybody out of here and get onto your great weekend. So anyways, let's skip. We'll skip the break and we will go to adding a sidecar. This includes plus here, and then we're going to go down to the bottom and select sidecar. And we're just going to go with the standardized dock one, the option. There's other options that you could play with at some other time, but we'll just go with the docked one because it looks good that way. Good. Now we have to do this in, well, you don't have to do it in exactly the order that it go about here, but we'll start off with adding in a heading. Control C for the heading of the first, so the sidecar slide text, it's referring to the side over here. Control C, and we'll right click and add as plain text. And when we highlight over the top of it, remember that's heading 2. Good. Now, here we're going to have to do the same thing as we did last time with getting rid of the bullet points. I'm going to do this, the bullet point separate. Delete the first one. Remember where we separate it as this interactive view. And then a little hint, because it's kind of narrow, what you can do is you can click at the beginning of the text, press Shift, and click at the bottom, and you'll get just what you want. And then Control C. Because it's sometimes dragging over that little thin text is kind of challenging. So Shift and click, I found earlier, is just a little bit easier. Now I'm going to select the plus sign here, right below, add text, right click, paste as plain text. I think there was a period at the end of that one that I didn't quite catch. I'm going to drag over the top of that, right click, and oops, not right click. Sometimes you have to scroll around a little bit to be able to see the paragraph / text option. So right here, we're going to go bullet list. So you might have to use your roller ball or your roller to be able to see that option pop up. Then remember this was a separate bullet, this interactive image. There we go. And then we have our 2 bullets. Back over here, let's add in the media. So this is fairly easy here. Just note that don't do what I accidentally did earlier and wondered why it wasn't working, was I accidentally copied all of it. And no, you need to copy just the HTTPS down, Control C. Then we go over on here, back to our story map builder, add on the drop down, and we're going to go with embedded first. So that we're putting in an embedded, actually interactive interface. Control V. This is a really cool interactive image that Andy Lyons put together for us and set up for hosting on GitHub. It'll take a minute for it to come in. Well, maybe not that long at all. Good. And you can click on add an interactive image or whatever, but don't worry about that right now. We don't need to get into that. The option here is fine. Good. Now we're going to add another slide car. So we can just go and click on this plus on the bottom here, and it'll add another option. We'll scroll down through the document. The next one's pretty easy. We'll copy and paste greenhouse operations, Control C, and that's a heading 2. So plus text, right click, paste as plain text, highlight it, paragraph, heading 2, Good. There's only one bullet this time. That's kind of convenient. Oh, by the way, we still have to delete that bullet though. Otherwise it gets kind of funky. Control C. Want to add that text in here with the plus. Oh, by the way, you see these little two dots down on your screen? That's just a little glitch. It doesn't actually show up in your final product. I don't know why they linger there, but yeah, doesn't mean anything when you publish it. So we do the plus sign, add the text, right click, paste as plain text, highlight over the top of it, and bullet list. Good. You might have the idea on how to do the media already. Again, if any of you feel like moving ahead of me on this, this is fine. I don't have this is, yeah, we're coming in a good glide path where we'll be finishing up just as as I'd hope for. But you can go through these steps fairly well because you see I mean, like I said, it's not exact. I wouldn't call it tedious redundancy, but there is a lot of redundancy and similarity and repetition that we do. And not really a bad thing, I don't think, is that you get used to this copying and paste and setting things up. And then that repetition is maybe a good way to learn sometimes. So this one, we're going to be adding in the greenhouse PNG file from the media. So we'll click add an image or video. We'll go down to our options, put in the greenhouse one, drag and drop it in. It's up near the top. Click add, because we're talking about greenhouses. Moving down, we'll add one more in. This is kind of a neat one to embed a video. There's different ways you can do this, but this is the way we'll do it for this exercise. Let's do the video first because it takes a minute for it to upload. So in this case, we'll start here with add video or image or video. Go to our media folder. Oh, what the heck happened? I click off of something. Oh, I did. I clicked on PC. So now I have to scroll back to where I was at. Oop, there. I'm going to go to the direct video. Drag the direct video and drop it in there. And click add. And it'll take just a little bit for it to fit in there. But it doesn't matter because we can continue without it while it uploads. It won't hurt anything. So we can put in our heading 2. Control C. Continue your story. Plus text. Right click. Plain text. That's heading 2. Heading 2. There we go. And then we have these 2 bullet points. Again, we have to remember it's similar is the word where we add another bullet point. So we delete these bullet points. You can click at the beginning, shift, scroll down, or you have to let go of the shift to get all the way down. Click at the bottom with the shift, Control C. Then we'll do another plus sign, text. You can see all these weird kind of glitchy overlays that it does, but clearly isn't stopping anything. So we'll do right click, paste as plain text. Scroll over to the top, over the top of it. Remember, there's a bullet point, so we right click. Oh no, excuse me, not right click. Do the drop down, pick bullet list, and then click right before similar, and then click enter. And right about then, my video finished uploading, and so we're good on that one. Good. Almost there. We just have one little last stylistic thing that we can do here. I'll show you how to publish it and how the results will work and how this relates to those sharing groups and so forth earlier. But before we do that, this last little section. We'll add in a little bit of text at the bottom. Another text option. Control C. underneath when we're finished with the DREC stuff. Control-C to learn more about Kearney. Text again. Right click, plain text. We want it just to be plain text. We're going to add a button this time. But before we do that, just for efficiency's sake, let's go over the text. Control-C, visit Kearney's website. Control-C. Do a plus. Put in a button. This is where you can actually just Control-V here, because there's only one text version that can go in there. But then we go back to the text. This, by the way, adding buttons is sometimes a way to put on one of the story maps, like a website, a option for donations or gifts. So that could be sending someone to like a gift or a donation survey page. But for now, we're going to copy this URL from the document. The URL for the button is care UCANR-IGIS, Control-C. We'll go over the top, click the edit, and it'll give you the option of only for the URL. But one thing you have to remember is click enter after you put it in, or it won't take. Good. We'll enter in that separator that we added earlier. The separator is here. Good. Gives us those 3 little dots. And back to the document. We're going to do another heading for extra resources. So Control-C for extra resources. Click plus. Text. Right click. Plain text. And heading 1. Highlight and then heading 1. Good. And then that adds to the navigation tab. And then the heading 2 is other rec locations, research and extension centers. Rec stands for. Control-C. Add, so from the document, the heading 2, click plus, text, right click, paste this plain text, and then we'll make it, highlight it, and make it paragraph or heading number 2. Good. And then one more text, and then I'll show you how to do a story map tour. And that will be that'll be all we wrote there. So text, Control-C. Go back over to the document, plus text. Right click, plain text. This is just paragraph text, so that's fine if it just goes in the way it is. And then lastly, we're going to add our map tour base map. And what we do here is, oh, wait a minute, heck, I've been putting those in front of the separator. I got to grab the separator and drag it up above the extras. There we go. My bad. In fact, I might have to get here. No, that's fine. Good. Now we'll do the map tour. The way we do that, we click plus. I have to move my zoom to be able to see what I have down here. But we scroll all the way down to the bottom is the map tour option. Click on that. Start from scratch. The guided tour is the one we want. The Explorer is pretty neat too, but not what we want right now. Click next. Map focused is what we want right now. You can also do media focused. And now we're going to only do 2 recs because that's plenty. We don't need to do we have 9 total recs. We've already done 1. So we just add it. I mean, we just can, just for the process, we can put 2 in and that's good enough. But before we do that, let's add the map. We didn't create that map for anything. So we'll click edit. So just so you see what I did there, I'm going to cancel. So where we have the map over to the right, I'm going to click the little pencil and click edit. And then under select base map, I'm going to select not where it says human geography light. That's kind of a little bit not intuitive, but if I click that, it's going to give me the option to browse more maps. And I'll click browse more maps, and we can reselect our UCANR story map workshop map that we just created. And this time we don't have to worry about the zoom level because it's going to be set in the next steps. And just click done. Good. Check the chat. Okay, yeah. If you missed any of the little things, it's okay. Alternative text is just not really important. Okay, I'll come back to some of those at the very end just to answer the questions. Good.
Hey, Sean, if I can add one thing.
Yep.
Alternative text is not important here, but it is important if someone is using a screen reader, just to make sure people get that.
That's right. And that's, yeah, again, I might have brushed over that earlier for ADA compliance. Yeah, that's sometimes quite important. So to add in, I'm just going to add in a couple different recs. We'll start with our Desert Research and Extension Center. And so that'll be the first one on here. We have to go in a certain order. We have to start by adding an image. So we'll add an image before we do anything else. And in our drive folder, or in our workshop media folder, we'll go to DREC. This is the first one alphabetically. Just drag that in there, drop it, and click add. Then I'm going to go down to title, and the title is just going to be Desert Rec. Control C. This time you can just do Control V because it only has one type of text that can go in there. And then the description, same thing as can be Control V. You just say visit the Desert Rec website, Control C, Control V. But we do want to put in a hyperlink underneath that. So we'll go over the top of the hyperlink that's included in the document, Control C. Drag over the top of visit the rec website, and then use the little chain link. Oops, I have to scroll things up a little bit to add web page, and Control V, and click apply. And then finally, we're going to select add location. And the way we do that is now we can zoom in using the roller ball to get down close-ish. You don't have to get too close. You want to still have it be good for reference. So we'll click on this point here where it's the bottom of the state, right down by Mexicali. Click over the top of that dot and then use current zoom level. It's important that you select this because then it'll zoom to this area when you scroll over that particular tab. Good. And then add location. Good. Now, the next one, we'll just add one more just to show you how it's done one more time for redundancy, and it'll be the last thing that we need to do to finish this up. Because the rest of this stuff is what you've done dozens of times now, I think. So we'll just add one more in the directions, South Coast Research and Extension Center. So we can copy and paste this right now, the slide location, but Control C. So it's the same thing as over here. We'll click on add image or video. Select from our media folder and go to the South Coast. Drag and drop that in. Give me a second to do that. Click add. Good. And then scroll down. We can Control V to add in the title that we just copied. Let me get my zoom out of the way. Now we can do the title, or excuse me, visit, just like we did before, visit South Coast Rec website, Control C. Same exact process as before, Control V. It's not sensitive to the Control V anymore. I know, you have to learn this through the hard way sometimes. Control C, from the document, the hyperlink, scroll over the top of it, and then click the chain. Might have to rotate it up a little bit. Web page, Control V, and apply. And then lastly, we add location. And this time I happen to know, well, South Coast is right down here by John Wayne Airport. You can just click on top of that, Orange County. And again, we select the use current zoom level and add location. So let's publish this and we're good. So the last things that are on here, it's just repeating that same process. I mean, I'd almost say ad nauseum. You could just at the very end create a separator and credit heading and your contents, and then in the end it would just look like the web page that we showed you before. To get to that point, this is what you would do. You go over here to publish. So once it's saved automatically, but we just go to publish, click publish. You this is where you set your sharing settings to private. You could go to your organization. There's you can set groups at this level too. So you can do organization, and then once you select organization, you can select sharing groups. So you can set it at that level. In this case, I might just go everyone. I don't care. And then leave the defaults, probably is good right there. And then once you're ready, you just publish this. And it'll take a second. Oh, it shows that there's some things underneath that you need to change the permissions. It prompts you to do that. So you say yes to sharing these, because I didn't set the sharing settings for everyone for the ANR locations that we put in earlier, the research centers. And now once it's published, this is a web page. You can just copy and paste the URL and send it to your family. You can send it to your associates, and it is that's a standalone web page. Or you can put it in an iframe on your website, which you like, if you just want to copy and paste it into, say, Site Builder, whatever web development tool you use, WordPress, and that URL works. Now let me check the comments, the chat. So let's see, does anyone have a good recommendations for good resources on designing content or structural narrative flow and story maps?
Hey, Sean,
yes.
I had two things on this specific question.
Great.
Can you go back and make this one editable again for a second?
Yes. So the way you do that, that's a good thing. You go up to the little three dots at the top, right click and edit story.
And then to answer Megan's question, if you were to hover over the question mark next to your profile, there are a handful of resources there that you can use. Also, if Sean, if you were to go, so that'll open up and you'll see different things. If you were also going to go to back to your main story map page.
Okay. I'll go back here.
And on the left side, you'll see quick links, and there's story planning, exploring stories. There's a bunch of other resources there as well.
Fantastic tips. Awesome.
Hopefully those help.
Yeah. So those are some resources. Again, we have our office hours on Mondays and Tuesdays. If we have kind of like real specific questions that you need to get at. Excellent. Let's see. Good. So I'm looking for, you know what? We had like 47 people register for the workshop, and that's not uncommon that not that many show up, because a lot of people want to be they want the material and they want to go through it on the recording so they can back up and go through it again and again. And yeah, hopefully all of you are able to use this content. Hopefully this worked out. This is what you were looking for. The pace was good. Hopefully, I know there's so much copy and pasting back and forth, but then you kind of get the idea of how you can just, set up all these different elements. Good. And Maggie got us the office hours again. Those are great. And then another thing, this is very important. Last thing, please fill out our evaluation survey. We take those very seriously. Not only does it show that we're doing, we're providing a good service, but also gives us feedback on how to improve these for each future workshop, because we will repeat these and they're always hopefully getting better because of the comments that we receive. And hopefully this is valuable for us or for you. And if you do end up using it, please let us know. We love to track success stories of how people are using the story maps in their trainings in general. And then if anybody wants to unmute and has any last minute questions, we're at the end of the hour. Great. Thank you, everybody. We do really appreciate you coming. Well, thank you all. Thank you all. And everybody, please have a really great weekend.